Hello guys, welcome back to 1001 Games. So this past weekend in church, I had a really cool moment that I wanted to share with you because this hit me hard. And as I started talking to people, a lot of people haven't realized this. So it's a really cool thing in the Bible, just a small little section, so it won't take long to go through. So, backstory, on Sunday, my pastor was teaching on the Gospel of Mark. We had just gone through a Bible reading plan together as a church for the month of January. They've started a new one for the month of February, but they were finishing up Mark, this sermon, and he was talking about this part here, wind and waves obey Jesus. He went into other sections, but this was a big part of his sermon. And so I want to go through it because he had this cool thing that he didn't really understand. And my Bible is the CSB Study Bible. It's become like my new favorite Bible because of all of the notes. You'll see you got like the top section up here. That's the Bible. And then there's a ton of notes to help you understand the context often of the time, things that people back then would have just understood. So let's go through what he was talking about in church, and let me explain what popped out. So we're going to read this. On that day, when evening had come, he told them, "Let's cross over to the other side of the sea." So Jesus had been speaking all day, and it's the end of the day. They want to go to the other side of the sea. Just a little context, because I want you to know he's been speaking all day. I'm skipping over that because it's not relevant to this part of the story. So they left the crowd and took him along since he was in the boat, and other boats were with him. A great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking over the boat, so that the boat was already being swamped. So I have a diagram here of what is likely the style of boat they were using at the time. As you can see, the walls of the boat are fairly low. And there's even some that say that there was like a cutout in the side of the boat to make it easier to pull fish into the boat. So, real easy to understand how any amount of squall, could cause the waves to crash over and swamp the boat. All right, let's continue. He was in the stern, sleeping on the cushion. So they woke him up and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care that we're going to die?" Now, a little bit of context on that. Mark used harsher language than the other Gospels. The other Gospels tended to soften the language, I guess to be nicer on the disciples, or not entirely sure. But Mark often used harsher language. And to me that says he's very particular about what words he uses. He's not going to hold back. So he got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the sea, "Silence, be still." The wind ceased, and there was a great calm. Then he said to them, "Why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith?" And they were terrified and asked one another, "Who then is this? Even the wind and the sea obey him." So what was my pastor a little confused about? Well, it was this part up here. He was in the stern, sleeping on the cushion. Well, what is the cushion? That was what my pastor didn't understand. He's like, "I don't know why there's a cushion in the back of the boat. I don't know why Jesus is sleeping on it, but it's irrelevant to the story because Jesus is making a point about faith." And he's not wrong that part of the story is what's important. But the note in my Bible made this all the more interesting. Because my Bible explained, if I flip to the right page, the stern of the boat had a raised deck on which fishermen could sit or lay. And you can see that here. It has a little raised deck. The cushion was for the helmsman. And it also mentions, for the only time recorded in the Gospels, Jesus was sleeping. Exhausted from teaching, he entrusted himself to God. So, I think this is incredibly important context. You see, he was in the stern sleeping on the cushion. Now, I looked up on this nice Bible Study Tools website where you can compare multiple different versions of the Bible. I looked this up because I was curious. What did the other translations say? So, one I like the most, Holman Christian Standard Bible, he was in the stern, sleeping on the cushion. English Standard Version, asleep on the cushion. King James Version, asleep on a pillow. Okay, slightly different. The Message Bible, head on a pillow, sleeping. New American Standard Bible, asleep on the cushion. New International Version, sleeping on a cushion. New King James Version, asleep on a pillow. So, if you look on a cushion, on the cushion, on the cushion, the cushion, I think that verbiage matters. On the cushion instead of on a cushion, because the cushion implies that this cushion is important. And so when my Bible explains that the cushion was for the helmsman, that makes sense. Why? Because the helmsman is most likely sitting in the same spot for a long period of time and might want to sit on a cushion. Whereas the oarsmen, the people handling the yard, the people throwing the nets, likely are moving around a lot. The helmsman has one job: keep the boat on its course. So the cushion is reference to the cushion that would be at the stern, the one for the helmsman. It's the helmsman's cushion. Okay, so where did this sink in? So after the service, I went up to my pastor and I said, the cushion is for the helmsman. My pastor's like, yeah, but it was at the stern. I don't understand. I'm like, yeah, but the cushion's for the helmsman. It's the helmsman's cushion. And my pastor's response was, first my pastor was like, so Jesus was steering the boat. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you should have spoke up in church. He likes it when people interrupt him with fascinating ideas in church. Me, I'm a little bit reserved. I don't like to speak up in church. I think it's a little bit disrespectful, but, and he said, that's a heck of a lot better than anything I said up there, or something to that matter. I think his sermon was great, and he nailed it. He's my favorite pastor there when he speaks. He does amazing. So I don't want to belittle him, but it's so cool to me because it's really clear. Jesus is sleeping on the cushion. Which cushion? The helmsman's cushion. Well, what does that make him? The helmsman. He's the one steering the boat. And having faith in God, he chose to sleep, knowing that the boat would be okay. And this understanding even adds more context because the disciples' response is, teacher, don't you care that we're going to die? Now, if Jesus was just being paraded around, like he was just being chauffeured from one side of the Sea of Galilee to the other, and he wasn't doing anything, they probably wouldn't be that upset if he's sleeping, because it's not his job to. But no, Jesus was likely helping out with the boat. And if he's on the helmsman's cushion, he was probably the helmsman. He was probably steering the boat. So the storm comes, waves are crashing over the sides, And the disciples look to their helmsman, the guy who's supposed to be steering the boat, and he's asleep. Who wouldn't be upset? And so the reaction makes perfect sense. And yet, Jesus got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the sea, "Silence, be still." And the wind ceased. And so rather than respond to them, he gets up and shows them exactly why he's the helmsman. Because he's in control, even in the storm. And then he said, "Why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith?" And this, I'd never understood this before. It's such a small little detail. It's 3 words on the cushion. And if you never take the time to dive into why, you probably wouldn't understand this. But the cool thing is, the people at the time that this was written would have understood this. Oh, it's the helmsman's cushion. Jesus was the helmsman. And so I'm going to leave you with this, because this is really what sat with me and what has been gnawing at me since I realized this. It's, who is the helmsman of your life? And the second question I have for you is this. When storm waves come, are you going to react like the disciples do, saying, "Teacher, don't you care that we're going to die?" Or are you going to have faith, knowing that God is the best helmsman there is? Stay with that. God bless. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed this one. I really, it's been hitting me hard all week. If you have any comments, any ideas that you disagreed with, go ahead, share them down below. I'm happy to hear it. And if you like the video, please take your time to read your Bible and pray. It really does help out the channel. Thank you, and have a nice day.